everybody. Good morning. How y'all doing? It is your girl, your diva and knowledge, Lady Mocha. Represent Mocha's Cafe de Paris, where I'm always serving you wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual awareness. Hope everybody's having a blessed morning. Had to get on these YouTube streets early, before the traffic starts overflowing. Good morning to my sissy, Poetic Kels. What's up, boo? How you doing? I know y'all probably on y'all way to work, so I get it if y'all can't do a lot of chatting. I understand. Because I know usually everybody be going to work around this point in time. But I want to hurry and jump on here before these YouTube streets get crowded, before the traffic gets heavy, and I don't get a chance to get in. Thought it was imperative that I talked about this lifestyles of the registered sex offender, because we have a lot of registered sex offenders. Even particularly more so, I'm not going to say the gentleman's name, but it's already been brought to the attention of the YouTube streets that there is a male that is a registered sex offender who apparently has a record as far as being a sexual predator, a registered sex offender, pedophile, pookie pedophile, whatever you want to call it. We have a lot of that going on in the Black community, and the problem is a lot of people sweeping up under the rug. Now there is something going on in the YouTube streets about a particular gentleman that is a registered sex offender, and word is, I'll say allegedly, but I really can't say allegedly because his registered sex offender profile was actually pulled up. Another content creator actually pulled up his registered sex offender profile, so it's not a rumor. It's not false allegations. I am a correctional officer. I work in the correctional facilities, and one thing I know when it comes to being a registered sex offender, that is not something that people just make up. These people take extensive measures before they actually have you to register as a registered sex offender. They make you take extensive measures. They do extensive investigations. Yes, sis, it's going on. That is so awesome, sis. I'm gonna call you, Kels, when I'm done with this. When I get off of here, I'm gonna call you because I wanna get some more information about your business. It costs 5 days. Okay, I feel you. I'm gonna call you when I log up off of here. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this particular issue because there are so many. We have a high population of registered sex offenders. And the worst part about it is the numbers are increasing every single day within the Black community. There are so many registered sex offenders. There are registered sex offenders in your church. There are registered sex offenders in your school. There are registered sex offenders, hell, even in your own family. And some of them have been able to slide between the cracks. Some registered sex offenders have been able to get jobs with children, which is definitely illegal, which definitely goes against what's called, make sure I give y'all the word correctly, against the national guidelines for sexual offender registration and notification. So a lot of these registered sex offenders, they are basically under an act known as the SORNA Act. The SORNA Act, which is the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. This act came about with a host of, y'all probably don't remember the show, but America's Most Wanted, Adam Walsh. He was the one whose son actually got murdered in the hands of a pedophile, and they never was able to find the person who actually murdered his son. So I guess, it motivated him to start to propose this law so other children could get protected, and it's known as the SORNA law, Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, which provides a new comprehensive set of minimum standards for sex offender registration and notification in the United States. So this is worldwide. This is an act that has been implemented worldwide. It's basically an act in which once you get caught violating any type of sexual offensive crime, you basically have to register as a sex offender. And this is an act that's is basically a law in every state. Each state has different requirements though, but for the most part, most of the laws are pretty much the same. And we're going to go into those different laws and the different restrictions and stuff. So I thought it was imperative to talk about this because, again, it's way too many people that are comfortable with overlooking how severe it is when we accept these type of individuals in our community, when we overlook this act and we try to give them a pass, we try to condone it, we try to say, well, that was a long time ago, or well, we really don't know what happened. You know, we try to, and that's the part that really just disturbs me about the Black community. We really try to overlook and sweep under the rug that there's a high population of pedophilia in the Black community. And the truth of the matter is you do have a lot of individuals that have a sickness, but I don't want to consider the sickness meaning that, because when we use the term sickness, that's like something you can't help. You can help being a sexual predator. You have a lot of individuals that are walking around here with demonic lust for children. Demonic lust. What's up, Devin? Demonic lust for individuals that are underage. And that's why I thought it was imperative that we discuss this, because again, I've been peeping from the clouds, and it was brought to my attention that there was a particular individual, and I'm not going to say his name because again, you got people that are condoning it or that are still supporting him, even though it's been brought to the forefront that he is a registered sex offender. And unfortunately, you got some guys co-signing on it. You still have people supporting him. And I'm not saying they should be mean to him or, they should be disrespectful. But at the same token, we shouldn't give people a pass. Once a person is a registered sex offender, you have to be very mindful of how welcoming you are, and how accepting you are. Because when we accept this type of behavior, it repeats itself. And the truth is, a lot of people are not going to see nothing wrong with it until it happens to them, or until it happens to their child. They're not going to take it seriously until it happens to them. Like, I remember we had this case in Savannah, Georgia, and this actually was a case that had hit close to home. And it was a really unfortunate situation where there was a child by the name of Ashley Moore who basically was murdered by a child predator. And it really could have been prevented had her mother used discretion. And again, what's up, Nerly? Good morning. And I'm going to share the screen. And again, this is something, like I said, it's happening a lot in the Black community. And the sad part is a lot of us, we're not going to take it serious until it happens close to home. But I remember this happened, and this is in my hometown. I remember this happened back in, 2003. There was a young lady by the name of Ashley Moore who unfortunately end up, she was murdered. Back in 2003, it happened, the disappearance or slaying of 12-year-old Ashley Moore. Basically what ended up happening was her mother, which is this woman here, was basically a correctional officer at a facility. And against her better judgment, she started fraternizing with an inmate, which is a big no when it comes to being a female officer. When you fraternize with inmates, you're engaging in inappropriate conversations. You're basically low-key flirting, you know. You basically got like a relationship going on with an inmate. And basically Ashley Moore's mother, that's what she did. She being a correctional officer, she let an inmate get in her head. And I always said, and I to women, that if you know you are vulnerable, or if you are a woman that has self-esteem issues, do not become a correctional officer, because you can be mentally and emotionally infiltrated if you are weak by these inmates. So everybody cannot be a correctional officer. If you're the type of female, you love attention, you're having problems at home, you're not getting along with your man, or you really want a man, I don't recommend that you become a correctional officer. You will fall prey. These dudes are very slick and they are very clever. Even though they are criminals, they know how to infiltrate the mind of a weak woman, a lonely woman, or a thirsty woman. So if you're a woman, you're lacking low self-esteem, or you love attention, please find another profession other than becoming a correctional officer. So Ashley Moore's mother here, as I stated, was a correctional officer, and she allowed an inmate to infiltrate and get in her head by the name of Bobby Lavon Buckner. And I'm going to show you who he is when I get through this story. He basically, everybody knew he had something to do with Ashley Moore's case, but the problem was nobody couldn't prove it. Again, this man was a registered sex offender. Why her mother chose to deal with the inmate who was a registered sex offender is bananas to me. But again, when you have low self-esteem, are you always seeking attention, any pookie can infiltrate you mentally. It got nothing to do with your career. It got nothing to do with how many college degrees you got. If you are weak, if you are a vulnerable woman and you love attention from men, or you have low self-esteem, pookie pedophiles can easily infiltrate you mentally. So anyway, what ended up happening was Ashley Moore's mother, she was a correctional officer, and she was having an inappropriate relationship with an inmate. So just to give y'all a background on this, on the Ashley Moore case, again, that's happened in my hometown. This is a true story. This is nothing that's made up. Ashley Moore was an honor student at Duran Middle School. She disappeared from her home at 6 Wiener Drive early April 2003. Her body was found about 3 weeks later on May 14, 2003, near Savannah Marriott Riverfront. The disappearance had set off a massive manhunt that extended from the home of Montgomery Crossroad to Lake Mare. And it also later aired on America's Most Wanted. Savannah Chatham Police Detective Tamargo would later testify that he believed Ashley was slain there or immediately thereafter as Buckner was taking her out of the house. He also testified that Ashley was forcibly taken from her room and that allegations of sexual assault involved more than one occasion. Buckner, the 26-year-old live-in boyfriend of Ashley's mother. Again, this was another one of those low self-esteem women that decided to take an inmate who was actually an inmate at her correctional facility, because again, she's an officer. She decided to allow this man to move into her home and jeopardize her safety, especially her daughter's safety as well. So she allowed her 26-year-old live-in boyfriend, Ashley's mother, which is Michelle Moore, who was arrested. You know, he was arrested 2 days later on probation revocation warrant. He was not to be in the presence of females under the age of 16 without adult supervision. So Whenever a woman decides to take in a registered sex offender, she's already violating the law, because the law already has a design. Once you have registered as a sex offender, you cannot be around the presence of underage females under the age of 16 without supervision. So I'm not sure how many women are aware of that or not, but the truth is you cannot take a man that's a registered sex offender. I don't care how thirsty you are. I don't care how desperate you are. You cannot take a man in your home that is known as a registered sex offender, because you are helping him to violate the law. In the Moore case, Buckner was first indicted 2007 on charges by murder of strangulation, kidnapping, child molestation, and related charges. So you could only imagine the torment that this young woman had gone through, knowing she was strangled, she was raped and kidnapped. She totally was in a very vulnerable place. She was totally defenseless. She was not going to be able to escape this no matter what, because her mother, who should have been protecting her, allowed this man to move to her home. So he was re-indicted again May 13th in 2009 with a charge of statutory rape being added. A third indictment was turned in on March 23rd, 2011. Larry Chisholm, who was the district attorney at the time, allowed that he would seek death penalty, but he later dismissed the death penalty request. So what ended up happening was they really could not pinpoint. They really couldn't pinpoint. They knew he had something to do with it, but the problem was they really could not pinpoint it. So the case ended up being tossed out, which was definitely a disadvantage for Ashley Moore, the victim, who unfortunately died behind this. So basically, I'm not going to go too deep all into this, but it's just basically to let y'all know that this definitely does exist. We have child predators that are in the Black community that are sliding underneath the cracks. They're sliding underneath the radar. And the truth is, once you become a registered sex offender, your lifestyle is totally different. You cannot live like the average people live. You cannot do what average people do. That is why Nicki Minaj's husband, Kenneth Petty, if you notice, you don't see him too many places with Nicki Minaj. You don't see Kenneth Petty too many places with Nicki Minaj. And you're not going to see him too many places due to the fact that he is under strict policies and regulation. So he's not going to be able to do what average men do. And the sad part is, unfortunately, by Nicki Minaj being uneducated, I really don't think she realized what she signed up for when she decided to marry a registered sex offender. Because these jokers got so many rules and regulations till it's not even funny. They cannot do what they want to do. They have a lot of rules. And we're going to go into all the rules. We're going to go into all the regulations, because there are a lot of registered sex offenders that are violating rules. They're violating the laws. A lot of stuff they're not supposed to be doing, and they're doing it. They have rules that they are violating, that they are breaking. And that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the lifestyle of the registered sex offender, because a lot of them are living and doing things they know they're not supposed to do. So we're going to go into some of these laws and regulations. Now I'm trying to pull up here Nicki Minaj's husband, because I want y'all to see what registered sex offenders, what their requirements are, the rules and regulations they have to live by. We're going to talk about that, because again, this stuff out here is real. It is happening. And we don't need to be putting it off. We don't need to act like it don't exist, especially if you have children, you have grandchildren. You need to be aware of how serious this thing is out here. You got a lot of registered sex offenders, and especially you single women, you single mothers. A lot of y'all are not doing y'all research. Y'all are moving these men into your homes. You are opening your doors to them. You are letting them move in with you and your children. And you're not even understanding that you're putting your children at risk. Let's see. See if I can find him. And like I said, as of recently, there was a certain individual on the YouTube streets that was exposed for being a registered sex offender. And I can't, it's not for me to expose that person or call him out. And I'm not even going to mention his name anywhere in the chat, or I'm not even going to say his name on his live stream. But it amazed me how many men was defending it. And they are actually upset with the people that are calling it out. It amazes me how we condone this type of behavior. And we want to try to justify it. And it's sad that you actually have people who don't see anything wrong with it. And they try to make excuses for it. And there's no excuse for it. Now, even Nicki Minaj with her husband, she was trying to pay the victim off. She was trying to get the victim, trying to pay the victim off to keep her mouth closed. First of all, your husband is already a registered sex offender. So how you figure you're going to make her change her story? For him to be a registered sex offender, they already did their research. So at this point, there's nothing. Nicki can't even pay her way off. She can't even pay Kenneth Petty ways off. She can't even buy it off. She can't even buy him out of it. What's up, Franklin? Good morning. Yeah, we're gonna talk about we're talking about these registered sex offenders. Because again, it's too many people that's taking it lightly. And they're not understanding the severity of, the lifestyle of the registered sex offender. Now, starting off by saying that there is 3 different types of sex offenders. You have 3 different types. You have your level 1, your level 2, your level 3. Now, most level 1 sex offenders, it's their first time committing a sexual offensive act. And it's usually nothing extreme. It could be something as simple as he pulled his penis out. He did like indecent exposure. Or he was caught doing some peeping Tom type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe a child or a little girl was changing in the bathroom and he was peeping at the child through a window, something like that. Which is still inappropriate. It's still sick. But most guys that fall under the category of a level 1 sex offender, they're not a major threat to society, and they're not a major threat to children, but they still, because they have displayed this type of behavior, the law has made it to where you still have to be cautious of these type of individuals. Meaning that, okay, yeah, he did some lightweight, sex offense, but we still got to be cautious of him and still make him register. Like I said, most level 1s are not a major threat because either one is their very first time committing this type of act, meaning they don't have a history of it, or they don't have any other criminal acts or whatever, or any other sexual acts So they're not really a major threat, and they don't have a history of it. So most level 1 sex offenders, they don't have them. They have them in the system, but they don't have them in the public sexual registered sex offenders list. Other words, the law is aware of it, but not the public. Because again, the level 1 sex offender, he's not a major threat. Level 1 is they the most least risk. They the less risky. Like I said, most of them are first time. This is their first time committing any type of sexual offender act. And they don't have any other history of it, and also too, they have been successfully participating in legally sanctioned sex offender treatment programs. So most of these level 1 guys, like I said, they're not so much of a threat. However, in most cases, whenever it comes to a man having to register as a sex offender, especially if he's on the sex offender registration list and you actually see his photo, his mugshot, his picture, and it displays his address, he's definitely a level 2 sex offender or a level 3 sex offender, which is definitely a threat to society. He's a threat to children, meaning hide your kids, hide your wife, because this individual is definitely a high risk factor. Whenever you have a registered sex offender and he's a level 2 or a level 3, first starting with level 2. Level 2 is a moderate risk, meaning the level 2 sex offender, he's not an extreme risk, but at the same token, he's definitely not low risk. He's kind of in the middle when you talk about the level 2 sex offender. He's pretty much in the middle. Which definitely means that you still have to be very cautious of him when the law basically considers this person as a risk factor when it comes to children, when it comes to being around underage little girls. And in most cases, when it comes to being chosen as a registered sex offender, these are the elements that must be involved. For one, was the victim capable of giving consent? Since we want to sweep this up under the rug and people don't understand how severe or how deep it is, in order to become a registered sex offender, these are the elements that had to take place. For one, was the victim capable? Now, you have had underage children who we definitely know are not capable of consenting to a sexual act. If you are let's say you are a 22-year-old male, there's no way in hell you could say a 13-year-old consented to to having sex with you. You cannot even utilize that at all. Once a child is under the age of 18, there's no such thing as consent. Even if the child knows what sex is, even if the child participated and you didn't have to force or rape the child to get it, you're still committing a sexual offense because that child is not an adult. Only an adult can consent to sexual intercourse. So you can't make it make sense by stating, oh, well, she wanted it. She knew what I was doing. Not when you're talking about a child. Same thing for men. Same thing for grown women. Grown women molesting these young men. They cannot justify that and say that he knew or he agreed. No, he was a child. You cannot condone it. Thank you, Franklin Hall, for the $15 donation. Franklin says paying tuition. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. Like I said, this is not a fun topic. I know I'm not going to get a lot of views on this, and I'm okay with that. But as I stated before, this is something that cannot be swept up under the rug. Because this is going on way too frequently in the Black community. You got all these sexual predators that are sitting among you, that are violating and doing things that they know they should not be doing. And that's why I'm doing this particular content this morning, because we have to talk about these rules and regulations. It's a lot of stuff as a registered sex offender that you're not supposed to do. Now, so we know the first thing is the victim was not able to give consent. Not only when we talk about the victim was not able to give consent, meaning that they're underage, do you not realize that you have sexual predators that take advantage of people that are slow or have retardation or have mental malfunctions? You have a lot of sexual predators that prey not only on underage children, but they also prey on individuals that are mentally retarded because they're easy targets. Matter of fact, people that have mental disabilities, they're more of a target than underage children because they have no idea what's really going on. They definitely have no way of defending themselves at all. So this is a factor. This is a factor that is definitely existing within the Black community. 1 second, y'all. Okay, so all right, I'm back. Good morning, everybody. So I wanted to get into again talking about this. We have the registered sex offenders in the Black community, that are breaking violations, that are breaking rules, that they should not be breaking. Once you become a registered sex offender, you have a lot of strict guidelines that you have to live by. So I'm first breaking down to everybody what elements had to be broken in order for you to become a registered sex offender. So the first thing was you basically raped or sexually assaulted somebody that was not capable of giving you consent. Basically, that person was underage or that person had mental issues. Secondly, you did it by force or fear or in concert with force or violence. That's what Nicki Minaj's husband did. They said he used a knife on the victim. So basically, whenever you become a registered sex offender, this is one of the elements that can cause you to have to register. You basically force that person out of fear. You use the gun, you use the knife, you use some type of weapon, or you either threaten them. You told them, hey, I'm gonna kill your mama, I'm gonna kill your daddy. You basically have threatened this victim. And you told them basically, if you don't, this is what I'm gonna do. So this is an element that has had to take place in order for you to become a registered sex offender. So for people that's walking around here saying that they really didn't do it, they don't know why they had to register as a sex offender, one of these elements had to take place in order for you to register as a sex offender. This is not just something that the law imposes on you just because somebody said, oh, this person raped me. No, there was some elements that took place in order for them to consider you as a sex offender. So you can miss me with the I was lied on, it was false allegations made towards me. No, there was several factors that took place in order for you to have to be registered as a sex offender. So that's the second factor, is that you threatened that person. You made them fearful that if they did not have sexual relations with you, that you was going to hurt them or kill them. Also, you did it by threat of retaliation. That's another factor. All of these factors are what contribute to individuals having to register as sex offenders. Or you drug the victim. You have some men who will go so far as to drugging a victim, so that way they could take full advantage. Yes, you have to basically register as a sex offender if you drug the victim. In other words, that person was totally incapable, had no clue, because you drugged your victim. When a person is drugged, they are defenseless. Because they're not in their right state of mind. You will register as a sex offender if you sexually assault someone based on the fact that you drugged them before you sexually assaulted them. The next thing is if the victim was unconscious of the nature of the act, which kind of pretty much falls upon a drug victim. Or in this case, let's say the victim was drunk. You are under the influence. You gave the victim, and you have some child predators, they will do this. They will give the victim a drug. They will give the victim something to drink, or they know the victim is just took a certain type of medication that makes them incoherent, or they know the victim, was under some type of influence, whether if that was alcohol influence, whether if that was marijuana, whatever influence, they basically took advantage. They took advantage of it and used it to their advantage. You will have to register as a sex offender if you have sexually assaulted somebody knowing they was unconscious, they was drunk, or they blacked out, or they passed out. You know they're in a vulnerable position in which they cannot defend themselves, in which they cannot protect themselves. So, therefore, you took advantage of the situation and you raped that person. You sexually assaulted that person. Another qualification of becoming a registered sex offender, spousal rape. Yep, you cannot just rape your wife. You cannot, I don't know too many cases in which women rape their husbands, but and I know the laws are pretty sexist. The laws pretty much allow women to get away with being pedophiles, which isn't right. But you do have some females that are registered sex offenders. I know 2 of them that are registered sex offenders for having sex with underage boys. But yeah, abetting or aiding or abetting a rape, enticing an unmarried female to a house or ill fame for prostitution. Yeah, a lot of people don't think that, but you can't rape prostitutes. I know it sounds, kind of contradictory, but basically she got to agree to it. You paid her, you cashed out her, you got proof that you paid the prostitute, you cashed out the prostitute. She can't cry rape then because it was a business arrangement. But if you I have an inmate right now, one of my inmates, he's incarcerated for raping a prostitute. She did not give him permission. He did not pay her. Because you have some sexual offenders, they think they slick. They think they can get away with raping a prostitute. And because that person is known as a prostitute, they think they're not going to get penalized for it. They think they can't go to prison for it. They can't go to jail for it. Letting you know you can go to prison for raping a prostitute. So don't think for a second that you cannot go to prison for raping a prostitute, because you can. Unless you got proof it was an actual agreement. So that's another thing you have to be mindful of. Inducing consent to a sexual act by fraud or fear, pimping of a minor, pandering of a minor, procurement of a child, the abduction of a minor for prostitution, aggravated sexual assault of a child. That's self-explanatory. You raped a child. Incest. Now, believe it or not, we have a lot of this in the Black community. I know I have a lot of inmates in my facility that had to register as sex offenders for incest. Matter of fact, one of them got sentenced 20 years. You were raping your own children, raping your own family members, raping your own relatives. A lot of that goes on within the Black community. So many children have been raped by family members. Little girls raped by their own uncles. Little boys raped by their own aunts. But see, this is something the Black YouTube sector, we don't want to talk about this because it's not a fun topic. It doesn't get you a lot of views. It doesn't get you a lot of subscribers. Because truth be told, a lot of them, you'll be surprised how many people are registered sex offenders that hang out in your chat room. You'll be surprised how many you sitting among. How many of them sitting in your church? How many of them you work with? They're everywhere. I'm in a facility where I work around a lot of them. The majority of my inmates are registered sex offenders. And I'll be honest, there's more black males than white males when it comes to registered sex offenders. And it's gotten to a point now, we have these young dudes. I have young dudes coming in my facility. They're in the juvenile facility at the age of 12 or 13 for raping somebody. We got these young boys, these little boys that have these lustful demons going on, in which is causing them to have to register as sex offenders at the age of 12 and 13 years old. That's how out of control this thing has gotten. So now that y'all pretty much know the elements, at this point I am going to basically break down all of the rules and regulations, the laws that sex offenders must abide by, because again, like I said, it was brought to my attention that there was a certain individual within the YouTube streets that it was basically brought to a lot of people's attention that this individual is a registered sex offender. And of course, you got a lot of people who basically are still siding with this individual. They're basically still co-signing and basically, giving him a pass. Like, we really don't know that, or that may not be true. Once you become a registered sex offender and you're in the system, that I don't know how much proof you want, how much proof you looking for. Once a person has to register as a sex offender, they have to register as a sex offender. That proof has already been established. So there's nothing really, there's nothing left, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how much justification a person needs. Once they register as a sex offender, they already been pretty much established that they are a sexual offender. So anyway, I'm going to go into the rules and the regulations of the things they can and cannot do. I know the first biggest thing is any person required to register as a sex offender in another state, unless the conviction was for the equivalent of indecent exposure, incest, sodomy, or oral copulation, provided the offender notifies the Department of Justice. So, first of all, once you become a registered sex offender, they assign you what's called a supervision officer. Every registered sex offender has their own community supervision officer, which means this officer is going to be keeping up with you for the rest of your life. You're basically going to be babysitted. They're going to always monitor you and make sure you're not violating the registered sex offender laws in your state. So basically, you will not have any privacy at all. As a registered sex offender, your community officer can bust up on you at any given moment, anytime they want. You no longer have any privacy. If your community supervision officer wants to come to your house 3 a.m, you really can't buck that. Now, of course, it got to be within reason. It got to be brought to their attention that, okay, maybe you got a child over there. Now, they just can't most of the time, they got to have a legitimate reason. They just can't harass the hell out you. I mean, sex offenders have rights too, unfortunately. But they don't have many. As a registered sex offender, you are very limited in your rights. You know what I'm saying? So basically, you get assigned a community supervision officer. That officer job is to make sure you're following the guidelines, that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. As I stated with Nicki Minaj's husband, he can move to other states. He can move all other countries depending on the sanctions of being a registered sex offender in California. But he must notify the Division of Criminal Justice Services. He cannot just up and move. Nicki Minaj just cannot up and move him anytime she wants. It don't matter if she's a millionaire. It has nothing to do with it. He has guidelines as a registered sex offender. According to SORNA Act, SORNA is Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. According to SORNA, Kenneth Petty committed a felony that caused him to be a registered sex offender. So he's required by SORNA, like a lot of these other registered sex offenders, he's required. Good morning, double C. He's required to follow all these rules and regulations. It don't matter if he's Nicki Minaj's husband. Now, I also wanted to mention two other factors that can also cause you to get registered as a sex offender. Before I go more into the laws too, you also, if you participated in any lewd or lascivious acts involving children. Oops, I think I got knocked out. Yeah, but I'm back. See, this is what happens when you really start speaking on deep issues, things that are really affecting the Black community. All of a sudden, you have these mishaps. But when people be on here preaching fuckery day in and day out, nothing tends to happen. I find that very interesting. So yes, you cannot have pictures of children in your phone. You get caught with these with pictures of naked children in your phone, underage children, you will have to register as a sex offender. You can't have no pictures. You can't have any of that. You can't have any advertisement or obscene matters, possessions or control of child pornography, annoying or molesting children, solicitation to commit rape by force of violence, sodomy by force of violence, oral, by force of violence, penetration by foreign objects, like I told y'all before, indecent exposure. No, you cannot just pull out your penis and show a child. That's inappropriate. You cannot do that, or you will have to register as a sex offender. Luring minor under 14 away from their home. If a child is playing in their yard, if a child is in their house, or you're luring them, you go to their property, you knock on the door, you're trying to offer that child money, you're trying to offer that child candy, something to make that child leave their property to come to yours. And then when you get them on your property, you sexually assault them. You will register as a sex offender. So like I stated, all of these acts, if you commit any of these acts, you will have to register as a sex offender. Period, point blank. So as I stated, the first thing is When you first become a registered sex offender, you get a community supervision officer. You have to sign documentation stating that all of these rules and regulations, you will abide by them. The moment you disregard or you violate any of these acts, you are floating on thin ice because you will go back to prison. So Nicki Minaj's husband or anybody that's a registered sex offender, all it takes for them is to make one wrong move. One wrong move, and they're going back to prison. One small minor violation, they don't play with registered sex offenders. So once you sign off, there's a lot of rules and regulations you have to abide by. The first thing is, anytime you move to another state or another country, you have to notify your community supervision officer within 10 days before you actually move. If you just decide to move somewhere, move to a new house, move to a new state, move to a new country, and you don't notify your officer, you will go back to prison as a registered sex offender. So definitely keep that in mind. Also, they have to get your fingerprints and the current photograph. So every so many couple of months, or I think maybe once a year, when you become a registered sex offender, they take pictures of you at least every 6 months to a year. That way they have up-to-date photos, because registered sex offenders, we all age, we get older, or we change things about ourselves. We may change our hairstyle, change our hair color. As a registered sex offender, you will have to take a photo every so many months to a year. That way they can keep up with what you look like, or if you made any physical changes to yourself, that way they can keep up with what you look like. Also, license plate number of any vehicle owned or regularly driven by a registered sex offender. Yes, as a registered sex offender, you have to let your officer know when you get a new car, when you register a new vehicle. Tedious things that normal people can just do without a problem. You go to the DMV, get your tag, and bam, that's it. Well, if you're a registered sex offender, whenever you get a new car, you get a new tag, you have to call your community supervision officer and notify them. You basically, it's kind of almost like you got goddamn parents. Remember when you was a child and you was up under your mother's roof, your parents' roof, and every time you made a move or you want to do something, you had to notify them? Being a registered sex offender is almost like you have a parent. You can't just do what the hell you want to do when you feel like it. If you do, you have to check with them first, or you have to let them know. So if you want to get another car, registered sex offenders have to notify their officer. If they relocate, they got to notify the officer. I already mentioned that to you. Also, your community supervision officer, they get copy of everything, down your birth certificate to your driver's license, any recent rent or utility receipt, printed personalized checks, or other recent banking documents showing your name, your address, or other information that registers you officially as the person that you say that you are. If the person has no residence and no reasonable expectation of obtaining a residence in the foreseeable future, that person shall so advise the registering community officer and shall sign a statement providing that. In other words, if a registered sex offender don't have a place to stay, they don't have anywhere to live, or whatever, they still have to keep up with that officer until they get proof of residence. He or she will be allowed to register but shall furnish proof of residency within 30 days. So again, you have a lot of rules and regulations you have to live by. Now, this is another big thing, and this was my concern to me. Now, as I stated, there's a certain individual who supposedly has been exposed as a registered sex offender. And the part that concerns me, this individual, like I said, he's within the Black YouTube sector. In most cases, registered sex offenders are not allowed to have access to the internet. And I'm just kind of taken back that this person has access to the internet. Most registered sex offenders, you cannot have access to the internet because the internet is a gateway to sex offenders being able to communicate with children, because you know children use the internet. In most cases, they're not allowed to have access to websites. They're not supposed to have social media websites. They're not supposed to have a Facebook, a Twitter, Instagram. They're not supposed to have access to the internet. But yet, you have a lot of sex offenders that be online using troll accounts, knowing they're not supposed to have internet access. Good morning, Larry. If you are a registered sex offender, you are not supposed to be on the internet, because anywhere where there's children, they don't want you to be. As a registered sex offender, you cannot go places where children go. So you can't go to Chuck E. Cheese. You can't go to the circus. You can't go to churches. You cannot live within a certain perimeter where there's daycares and there's schools. Anywhere where children live nearby, you're not allowed. You have to stay a certain feet away from where children live. This is the lifestyle of a sex offender. You can't, and can you imagine how difficult it is, because children live everywhere. Children are everywhere. If there's a playground nearby, you can't live where there's playgrounds. It's crazy because I'm not hard to get up, put on the registry, but this guy did some real irregular stuff and has internet access. Yeah, you're not supposed to have internet access. That's what I'm not understanding, how he's able to get on the internet. But you know what? If it was reported, this person could possibly get in trouble. Because I know very well that he's not supposed to be on the internet. A matter of fact, sex offenders is so strict for them, they can't even have phones with internet access. That's how bad it is when you're a registered sex offender. You cannot have a phone with internet access, with web access. Now, you can have a phone where you can make calls and receive calls, but they 9 out of 10, they usually try to recommend the registered sex offenders for them to get like regular phones where they can just call in and receive calls and text messages and stuff. But most of the time, registered sex offenders, you cannot have anything with internet access. And if you do, all it takes is one person to call your probation officer, your community supervisor, and it's curtains for you. You're not supposed to be on the internet if you are a registered sex offender, because too many children have access to the internet. That's a big no-no. Like I said, you can't live anywhere near children, like places where children congregate, like playgrounds, childcare centers, stuff like that. Other regulations, you also cannot have things in your access that lures children. In other words, you can't have teddy bears, You can't have lollipops, certain candies. That's how strict it is. So I know somebody, so you mean to tell me I'm a grown man, I'm a grown woman, and I can't have all kind of snacks and lollipops and teddy bears and little toys? No, you can't, because the way the state looks at it is you already have proven that you are a sex offender. So you only have access to these things so you can lure a child. No, as a registered sex offender, you cannot have anything in your presence that can lure a child. You can't have toys. You can't have games. You can't have all kind of candies. You can't have all kind of teddy bears and video games. Nothing that can lure a child into your residence. It sounds silly, but that's how strict it is. You can't do it. You cannot do it. Also, you're not allowed to have children in your home. Your own nieces, your own nephews, anybody that's underage is not allowed in your residence. So if Nicki Minaj has any children, well, we know she has one child, but if she has any nieces and nephews, long as her husband is there because he's a registered sex offender, they cannot come to her house. Now, she does have a child from him, so the laws vary with that. I guess if the parent is comfortable with their spouse, even though their spouse is a registered sex offender, if they are comfortable with their spouse being around the child, I guess, SORNA doesn't too much intervene in that. But for the most part, registered sex offenders cannot be around other people's children. So you can't have nieces and nephews spending the night around your significant other if that person is a registered sex offender. Also, another bad part about it is sex offenders have to register for life. It literally, it never goes away. There's no expiration date to being a registered sex offender. Once you are a registered sex offender, you are a registered sex offender. You could be on your best behavior for 10 years and you still gonna have to register as a sex offender. Offenders must update registration info annually with local enforcement within 10 days of birthday. So again, they constantly and consistently keep up with your every move. Also, as a registered sex offender, if you have a vehicle and you want to drive around and you want to go certain places, do you not know you have to keep a log of where you go as a registered sex offender? Like, for instance, if you got errands you got to run today, let's say you got to go to the grocery store, let's say you got to go to the mall, let's say you got to go get your hair cut. The average person, we can do that, okay? You can get in your car and go where you want, and you ain't got to explain to nobody where you're going. As a registered sex offender, you have to keep an itinerary. You have to keep a notebook. You got to write down everywhere you go. And in some cases, registered sex offenders, they got trackers on their vehicles. That's what I'm saying. Do y'all realize how critical it is being a registered sex offender? It's not worth it. Because it's so much BS you got to go through. So if you got plans, you have to call your community supervision officer, and you got to let him or her know what all you plan on doing that day. You can't just go where you want to go. Your community supervision officer got to know where you're going at, because they got to make sure you're not stepping outside of the guidelines. Like I said, I know it's not a fun, interesting subject, but this is something that a lot of people got to be cautious of. You cannot do what you want to do and go where you want to go. Another thing, as a registered sex offender, you cannot use drugs or drink alcohol. Do y'all not know that? You can't smoke weed. You can't drink alcohol. Because the reason it's designed like that, because they feel like if you are capable of raping a child, if you did it in your right mind, 9 times out of 10, if you get high, you get drunk, you'll do it under influence. Now, I'm going to share with y'all Kenneth Petty's profile. This is Nicki Minaj's husband. Now, as you can see here, Kenneth Petty, Nicki Minaj's husband, is a registered sex offender. I'm hoping. Let me know if y'all see it, because on my end, it's playing kind of slow. Okay, yeah, y'all can see it. Okay. So, even though Nicki Minaj is husband, right here, he's a registered sex offender in the state of California. As a registered sex offender, by law, they have to put you on a website in which people in your neighborhood and your area are aware that you are a sexual pedophile. Now we see here, he also goes under 2 aliases. He goes also by Avery Johnson and Kenneth Petty. As his birthday, as his year, he was born, all of that. They need to make this picture upright. And it tells you his offenses. He did attempted rape by force or fear. It even has his address where he's located. So therefore, his wife, Nicki Minaj, was not given she's not given any privacy. As long as she's married to a registered sex offender, she's not given a policy. So therefore, like I said, this is a lifetime. This is a lifetime obligation for him. He's going to always have to report where he lives. If Nicki Minaj ever plans on moving, he has to go through his officer. He cannot just move and do what he wants to do. Period, point blank. So as I stated, there's all of these laws and regulations that a sexual registered sex offender has to live by. Again, you cannot smoke, you cannot drink, because they feel like if you were not responsible as far as not put yourself in a position in which you made someone a victim due to your sexual urges, they don't feel, the state does not feel comfortable with you smoking weed, drinking alcohol, being under any influence that can possibly cause you to rape another child or to molest another child. You cannot use drugs or drink. Also, as a registered sex offender, you have a curfew. Kenneth Petty has to be home at a certain time. No, he cannot be in the club with Nicki Minaj turned up 2, 3, 4 in the morning. He has to be home at a specific time. If he is out past his curfew and his community officer finds out about it, he will go back to prison. That's why you notice you don't see Kenneth Petty everywhere with Nikki all time of night. You don't see them out in Waffle House on Instagram 4 or 5 in the morning. He cannot do what he wants to do. Also, if I didn't mention it, you cannot travel in out in other countries. How Kenneth Petty, what Kenneth Petty got dumb at, and like I said, it's a lot of registered sex offenders. They are not following the law. They are not following the guidelines. Kenneth Petty knew good damn well when he went to Trinidad with Nicki Minaj, he was in major violation, because he did not contact his community supervision officer to ask if he could travel and go into another country with Nicki Minaj. So when Kenneth Petty went to Trinidad with Nicki Minaj, he got caught for one because you were a star. So it was all over the tabloids. It was all on YouTube where you saw him in another country with Nicki Minaj. And that's where he messed up. That is why he had to re-register, and he lucky they allowed him to re-register versus sending him to prison, because he could have went to prison. He was supposed to go to prison, so he lucky he got off on that, and all he had to do was re-register. He went in another country, and it was brought to the attention of his community supervision officer, and that is why when he came back from Trinidad, he had to go and turn himself in and re-register. So, I say all that to say this, that these registered sex offenders, they have real strict guidelines to live by. They cannot just do what they want to do. And as a woman, realize if you decide to be involved with the man that's a registered sex offender, he's going to have so many rules and regulations, you're not going to be able to enjoy your relationship. You're not going to be able to enjoy being married to him peacefully, because he's going to have so many damn rules. It's damn near like you become a registered sex offender, because if you are married to somebody who cannot go certain places, who cannot do certain things, and if that's your companion, you're not going to feel comfortable doing things without that person. So, Nicki Minaj may not be saying anything about it to anyone, but I'm sure this has to be a lot to deal with. It has to be very frustrating when you're you're married to a registered sex offender. This dude has a curfew. This dude has to report every time y'all move somewhere. Not only that, you can't, as a celebrity, you can't even be private. Her address. Her address is known to the public because she's with a registered sex offender who's registered. And unfortunately, because he's registered, his information is going to always be publicly known. So it's just something that I just wanted y'all to be aware of. The lifestyle of the registered sex offender, that basically they cannot be normal. Really, you cannot be normal when you become a registered sex offender. You cannot just do what you want to do. And I'm noticing a lot of these registered sex offenders, they are violating the law. And as a citizen, you have every right to report that law if you see them violating. What's up, Lord Drag One? Yes, I'm cooking this morning. I'm cooking a little bit. I'm just speaking on the actual factual, because it's a lot of it that's going on. These registered sex offenders are getting a pass on stuff, and we need to stop giving them a pass just because they're your friend or just because you like them or whatever the case is. A registered sex offender is a registered sex offender. But that was the first thing I wanted to address. Talking about these registered sex offenders, basically, they're not in alignment, with the laws, with the guidelines. They're not following them. And eventually, if they're not following these guidelines, it's going to catch up with them. They're going to end up back in prison. A lot of these guys and some of these women who are also registered sex offenders, they're not following the guidelines. And eventually, it is going to keep up. It's going to catch up with them, in the long run. So the second thing I want to talk about is I'm been peeping from the clouds, and I'm noticing that there's a lot of content creators that are having meltdowns. What's up, Reg? How you doing? Yep. So there's a lot of these content creators that are having meltdowns due to the fact that their channels are not as successful as their channels first initially was, or whatever. And just to let you know, Reg, in case you just coming in and catching it, believe it or not, registered sex offenders, they're not supposed to have internet access. So I don't know why this individual has internet access, because they're not supposed to. I work in corrections, and I'm telling you what I know. You're not supposed to have internet access. So if this individual is not careful, somebody could report that and he can get in trouble for it. So if I was that person, I would come off the internet. If you know you are a registered sex offender, you don't need to be on the internet, because all it's going to take somebody to screenshot and report it and send it, and you're standing in front of the judge. So I'm going to just kind of say that, and I'm going to leave that at that. Now, I want to talk about these content creators that are having meltdowns. As I stated before, I've been peeping from the clouds. I don't really say a whole lot in too many spaces, but it's a lot of these content creators that are having meltdowns because their channels are not growing as significantly as it once was. And it's due to the fact that, Kevin Samuels' channel has really flourished and is doing significantly well. And he's basically has earned a large fan base due to his success. And because of that, I'm noticing it's a lot of content creators. They are having meltdowns. They are very angry at the fact that he's getting so much support and that his channel is doing phenomenally well. And what a lot of people are not understanding, and I've mentioned this before, it comes a point in time where success and fame does have an expiration date. 1 minute you can be on top, next minute you can be to the bottom. It happens because you have to realize when it comes to these fans are very fickle individuals. They can love you today and not want nothing to do with you tomorrow. That's what it's all about when you become a content creator. And what has happened is content creators, a lot of the content creators in the Black YouTube sector, they have become obsessed with views. They have become obsessed with having a large fan base. And what tends to happen, like you have some of these rappers, you have some of these athletes, when they've been hot for so long and somebody else comes in their space and takes their place and they're no longer as hot as they used to be, what tends to happen is a lot of content creators, they become very bitter, they become very hostile, and a lot of them are, I'm starting to notice, is if y'all are not noticing, I'm noticing a lot of these content creators, they are unraveling, okay? They are going on screaming matches. They're upset that, this man will not pay homage to them, that he will basically not shout them out. He won't put them on. He won't bring them on his platform to help them get, their notoriety back. And you have a lot of individuals that are hating on him for that. And what a lot of people have to understand is you have to realize that your crown could be taken at any point in time. You cannot get in your feelings because somebody else's success tends to outshine your success. You have to realize success does come with an expiration date. Just because you're the it thing now, anybody else can come in your spot and they can be the new it thing. So that is something a lot of these grown men, y'all are really acting really childish right now because y'all are really getting upset because y'all want recognition from y'all competition, and it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You have to realize that sometimes when people reach a certain plateau, sometimes people will be generous and they will bring you on. What's up, Abina? How you doing, hon? They will bring you on, and they will, show you some love and help you get some of that clout back. But in most cases, once people reach once they have elevated to a certain level, they're not going to bring you with them. Just keep in mind that just because you put somebody else on, that don't mean when they get big that they're going to put you on and return the favor. It happens, you know. And you really can't. It comes with the game. It comes with the game. You know, everybody's not going to do for you what you do for them. You know, so you have to be mindful of that. Also, I'm starting to notice that you have a lot of content creators. They think they own their subscribers. I was talking about this last night with Cool Gent and Topaz, where we was talking about how you have a lot of content creators who think they own their subscribers. Like, in other words, if you see your subscriber hanging out in another chat room, you know, chatting in the chat room with one of your ops, a content creator that you don't like, that you have content creators getting upset with their own subscribers because their subscribers are, you know, chatting and hanging out in other places. First of all, you don't own any of your subscribers. As a content creator, we do not own subscribers. Your subscribers have every right to congregate and go and hang out where they choose to. So you don't get to call your subscriber a traitor or say they're not loyal to your channel. You know, as long as they're being respectful and they're not going back and forth, causing chaos and confusion against you and another content creator, subscribers have a right to subscribe where they want to subscribe. You don't tell other grown people, well, you must be not real because you over here hanging out with other content creators and you know I don't rock with them and you know I don't hang out with them. It's just a lot of pettiness that's going on in the Black YouTube sector. And, you know, your people need to just really just get off their high horse. Nobody is obligated to you. You know what I'm saying? If people want to go and subscribe with other content creators, they have that right to do that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's just a few things I just wanted to address. I'm going to get ready to come up off of here because I got other things I got to do. But I just wanted y'all to be cautious of that. You know, again, I appreciate everybody's loyalty and dedication to my channel. I thank y'all for hanging out in the chat with me this morning. I wasn't really as prepared for my content as I should have been, and I'm going to work on that. But again, please be mindful of, again, these registered sex offenders, because I don't like the fact that once it has been brought to y'all attention that a person is a registered sex offender, that you want to justify or condone that person's actions of being a registered sex offender. There's nothing to condone. There's nothing to justify. A person that's a registered sex offender is a registered sex offender. Y'all need to look into y'all laws, look into the state of y'all laws, find out the rules and regulations. That way you don't get yourself caught up by affiliating with these type of individuals, because it could also hurt your brand and everything you built. So anyway, y'all, I'm going to get ready to shut it down. Ladies, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Mocha's Ladies Lounge. I'm going to be uploading. I'm going to go live over there today too for my ladies. So if y'all haven't already, to all of the ladies, please subscribe to Mocha's Ladies Lounge. That's going to be my channel specifically for women, where we discuss topics and issues pertaining to women. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure y'all subscribe. So anyway, y'all, it is your Diva in Knowledge again. I thank you, Franklin Hall, for the $15 donation. I appreciate you, and I'm gonna give you a wrench next time, Mr. Franklin Hall. I don't know what happened. I don't know if you was accidentally unhidden or something. I don't know what happened. But I'm gonna make sure that I give you a wrench the next time you come on here, so that way you're not blocked or anything. So I'm not sure if it was a mistake or what. I don't know, but I will make sure the next time you log in, I will give you a wrench so you won't be blocked or anything. So anyway, y'all have a blessed day. It is your Diva in Knowledge, Lady Mocha. Remember, I'm going to always pour you a cup of truth, and I'm going to always break you off a slice of knowledge. Y'all be blessed.